Caroline Pierce here at the MGM Grand Garden Arena on the very stage where the weigh-ins between Caleb Plant and Canelo just took place. They're breaking down the set around us, and I'm joined by John Rawlin and Richie Woodall. I mean, it was exciting. The crowd filled out the place, and a lot of words were exchanged between the two of them. I'm going to start with you, John. What would your takeaway be from what we just saw?
Well, they clearly don't love each other, do they? There's a bit of genuine animosity and a bit of dislike. And, Canelo's come out with this line, for every action, there's a reaction. And he's just saying, basically, I think tomorrow it's time. He was saying it again and again, and that was his message. He was just looking into his eyes and saying, basically, you can say what you like, but now it's real, it's happening.
Absolutely, and not long to go indeed. Richie, you were saying to me as well, you thought maybe Canelo's mentality was very different this fight weekend towards Caleb than it has been with previous opponents.
I think so. I think Caleb Plant has got under his skin, I really do. And he's got to watch what he's doing there, because that can affect the way you box. You look at Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury. Tyson got to him mentally, and it just makes you box differently, a little bit more tense. And I just see a very tense Canelo, if anything, which is, it's not like him. He doesn't, he keeps nice and calm, and he's very, very experienced, but he doesn't like Caleb Plant, and there's something there that suggests that, I don't know whether it could be an upset, who knows, but I think this is a lot harder fight than what people think it is.
Okay, well, it could go either way, because that animosity could make him an even more dangerous opponent, or it could make him, like you say, as if it's got into his head. John, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, Canelo is a massive favourite, both in the bookies at home and in the sports books here in Las Vegas. But if somebody's fighting angry, I mean, any fighter will tell you, and Richie, I'm sure, would go along with this. If you lose your cool, if you're fighting angry, then you're not going to be at your best. And if Canelo, if he really has got under his skin, well, you never know.
Well, there's so much at stake here. Obviously, the first time someone has an opportunity to get that undisputed super middleweight championship, that title. And I think the narrative has very much been that it's Canelo's opportunity to make history. But let's not forget, Plant could do so and cause that massive upset as well. But my question is, who do you think wants it the most? For who are the stakes the highest?
I think it's very, very obviously important for Canelo, because he become the first Mexican to win, to be undisputed champion, and the first in this division. But let's not forget Caleb Plant. I think he's improving every time. He certainly has the tools, has the height and reach, and can make it very, very difficult. I think he's improving in every contest. I really do. Only had the 21, and he's not been in with the level of opposition as Canelo, but I don't think we can write him off. Like I say, I see improvements every time I see Caleb Plant box. He's improving.
But the thing about Canelo, I mean, he's made as much money as anybody could ever need. And I think he's now talking about legacy and his place in history. And he's driven by that desire now. And I think becoming undisputed champion, it really is a major thing for him. He's talking about how people will remember him in years to go. And you heard Mike Tyson say, he's the greatest fighter of his generation. And he may well be that now Mayweather's out of the way. And he's wanting to create a legacy, and by winning spectacularly tomorrow, if he can do it, then he's on the way to that.
And I think also, Caroline, it means so much to the Mexican boxers. You'd think of the Mexican greats, the people like Salvador Sanchez, Julio Cesar Chavez, Morales, Barrera. These are Mexican greats. To be top of that pile for Canelo, I think, is just as important as winning this undisputed title.
So that's his motivation, obviously, to make history, that legacy amongst his Mexican peers. And look, it was a nice moment having Mike Tyson up here on stage. I mean, people wanted autographs from him left, right and centre. And I like the moment which they put him in the middle of the two of them prior to the face-off. I thought that was a very smart move. But there was some words exchanged nice words exchanged between Canelo and Mike Tyson, where Canelo said, "I want to be like you." And I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, I think, with Tyson, Tyson is Canelo's type of boxer. They both like each other's styles, and you can see why Tyson likes Canelo, and probably he's favouring Canelo because of the style. It suits his style of boxing also. He can see how Canelo boxes, how he's been successful, because that's how Mike Tyson was successful as well. In mid and close range, very, very powerful, explosive, whereas Caleb Plant is more of a Thomas Hearn, Sugar Ray Leonard type boxer, tall, rangy, and wins his fights totally different.
Well, actually, let's talk about what they weighed in at. 167 for Plant, 168 for Canelo. Take anything from that?
Not a huge amount. Not a huge amount. I think Caleb looked as though he'd made the weight easily. And, you sometimes look at fighters up on stage, and the first thing that Canelo did after he'd stepped off the scales, he went to look to rehydrate. He was wanting some fluid. Whether he's found it harder to make 168 than Caleb, well, You know, we don't really know that, but they both look in terrific shape, don't they?
Yeah, they really did. And let's talk about the fight tomorrow night and, you know, how we see it playing out. And I'll start with you, Richie. You know, what's the key to victory for both of them, and how do you see it going down?
I think the key for victory for Canelo is he's got to close the gap. He's got to get to his opponents, and he does it very well in most of his fights. He gradually wears them down. He closes the gap very quickly with the feet as he's walking forward, then explosive on the inside. That's what he's got to do. He's got to try and back him up onto the ropes. Caleb Plant, on the other hand, is totally different. But what's really important for Caleb Plant in this fight is he's got to somehow stop Canelo coming forward, and he's got to push him back a little bit. If you look at the success that Golovkin had, Danny Jacobs to a large degree had some success doing it as well, actually pushed his opponent back, pushed Canelo back. Not many boxers can do that. It's very difficult to do that, but that's what you've got to do, because if you allow him to come forward, get into a rhythm, then he's just so explosive. He's the best boxer on the planet.
Yeah. And John?
He's not 10 to 1 on for no reason, you know. Caleb, to win this, I think he's got to somehow find a way to win so emphatically that the cards almost become irrelevant. And frankly, I find that hard to see. I think, you know, it all points towards victory for Canelo.
Okay, and in terms of the height differential, obviously Caleb does have the height advantage and the reach. We know Canelo's fought every type of fighter and physical specimen there is, but
Well,
how can he use that?
It's the difference between me and Richie. You know, Caleb's his size, and Canelo's a little bit shorter than me.
Yeah.
And I'd flatten him, so
That is true.
there you
All
go.
right, well, my last question actually to you, John, is that, and both of you have been to Las Vegas so many times for so many fights over the years, but I think you were saying like 32 years you've been coming here, John.
Yeah.
How does this rank and this big fight build-up feel to you compared to the many events that you've attended here?
Well, it's always very special when you've got a guy in town who's reckoned to be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And the huge invasion of Mexican fans always brings a very special atmosphere. So, yeah, it's going to be up there. It'll be up there.
I think it'll be a great contest, and it's very special, the amount of people that was here today. I think, yes, it feels like a real fight atmosphere today on the scales. I really enjoyed it.
Good. Well, look forward to your commentary tomorrow. Of course, you can join us on BT Sport Box Office Saturday night. Let's see if history is made and who walks away with their hand raised.